All right, welcome back in. We'll get settled here as people kind of start to join the room.
Here we go.
Um,
Now we're getting crazy.
Nitty gritty. Evan Lazar is a slightly less optimistic, happy person than you saw about an hour ago when we left. He said the
Yeah.
draft is shaping up great for the Patriots. And again, this was the fear that there would be. I mean, certainly, if you were, I think it was a pipe dream always for one of the receivers to
Yeah.
fall. But what you saw was um, people were really geeked up about these receivers, and they traded up to get them. You had
Yeah.
trades up to get Chris Olave here at the 11 slot, and that was by New Orleans. And so London goes at 8. That begins the run. Then you get Garrett
We can
Wilson.
cross another wide receiver off too. Jahan Dotson, who I had predicted the Patriots are going to take at 21, off the board at 16 here to the Washington Commanders. So, look, John, we talked about this. You've been banging this drum longer than I have.
I know.
They love wide receivers. Like, wide receivers are now almost it's quarterbacks and then it's wide receivers on the pecking order of importance, of value in general.
Yep.
And you look across the league, and do I think that Jahan Dotson is the best receiver in the NFL or the best receiver in this draft? Absolutely not. But if you look across the league, Jahan Dotson, for what the 16th pick in the draft is going to make for the next 4 years versus paying Tyreek Hill $30 million a year to play wide receiver for you, is an absolute steal.
Versus the third one, Evan, that you have to consider is versus getting even a passable player in free agency if you don't draft and develop your own and get 5 good years out of them. Like, look at every receiver that signed a free agent deal last year, including obviously with the Patriots, with Nelson Aguilar, and the type of money you're throwing at a player like that to be middle class at 13 million versus what? Take a flyer. And again, I you're right. I've been banging the drum for a while. It's my philosophy is I would be taking one receiver in the first 2 days of the draft year after year after year after year, because this is where you're going to find these guys. And I do feel this is the year where everyone kind of caught on and they're like, oh yeah, you need lots of receivers, you know? And it's not just one, it's lots of them, you know? And the Patriots, you've said this before, Evan, they took one swing one time and then they put their hands in their pockets. You can't do that. Even if Harry was a huge hit, I still would have advocated them to keep drafting receivers.
Yeah, so now we're at the point, just looking at my top 50 by position, Sky Moore is now the next best receiver that I had on the board for the Patriots. And I projected Sky Moore to be like an early day 2 pick, but we're already at 16 and all these guys are gone. I'm assuming that Treylon Burks is going to go here at some point as well in the first round. So you're getting to the point where, like I said earlier, you know, if you don't take Jahan Dotson at 21, now he's already gone at 16. If you don't start taking some of these wide receivers in the first round, now you have Kansas City behind you. You have Dallas behind you. You have Green Bay behind you. Like, you're going to be in that John Mechie, Wan'Dale Robinson, Alec Pierce tier.
You're going to overpay a round later to get a lesser player. And that's the point is, I mean, and again, if Dotson was still on the board, I would have been all in here for that player at 21. Now you wonder, and again, I know you don't like who most people might think is the next consensus player. You don't even have him listed.
Not a Treylon Burks guy.
Here in Burks. I mean, you don't see, I mean, not you think Sky Moore is going in the first round?
Honestly, at this point,
it's possible now.
It's possible. Sky Moore, I think the best pro comparison that I've heard for Sky Moore is Brandon Cooks, who was an end of the first round guy, right? So I think it's possible. I think Sky Moore is actually better with the ball in his hands than Brandon Cooks was. Maybe not as fast as a straight line runner, but much better in yak mode and much more aware as a ball carrier, right? He's not going to get knocked out of the Super Bowl running around in circles like Brandon Cooks did. So I like Sky Moore a little bit more in that mold of that slot receiver that can create with the football in his hands. And that's the next best receiver. I mean, even if you put Treylon Burks back into the category for a second, Treylon Burks is the next guy, then Sky Moore is the next guy after that, right? I mean, we're still right there. So I don't know. This is the league now where these wide receivers, and we just saw two. Baltimore traded Hollywood Brown
Yep.
to Arizona for the 23rd pick. So Arizona gave up a first round pick for Hollywood Brown.
Right.
So it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And the Patriots can think about it one of two ways. And I know Bill Belichick, and I would assume that he's thinking about it in the second way. Either one is they just grab Sky Moore or Treylon Burks, whoever's there, or the other way is this defensive talent has now fallen down, right? Devin Lloyd, Jermaine Johnson, with some of these corners, Trent McDuffie, right? Some of these guys are falling down the board because all these wide receivers are going early. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to get the third best corner on our board at 21 because everybody else is taking the fifth best wide receiver in Jahan Dotson at 16.
Yeah, and this is where I know we threw this scenario out there discussing what the Patriots might do.
Okay, John, so I'm saved. Zion Johnson was just taken by the Chargers, and Kenyon Green was taken by the Texans. So there is no first-round guard for the Patriots. There's nobody that the Patriots are going to take. No guards. There you go. Off the board.
That's a victory for you. Well, I was going to joke about the Zion Johnson thing that, we were talking about as your nightmare scenario. And then Alex on our pre-draft show did mention, well, let's just pretend that the Patriots do trade back and draft someone like that. And then with their second pick, end up with Mechie or whatever, and then someone else. And you get, three good players or, in the top, whatever picks, 50, 60 picks or whatever it is. If you're able to pull something like that off, and would you feel better about that? At this point, if you're not going to get that splashy impact guy, are you in favor of trading up? And again, there's still names on your big board here that you like for the Patriots. But right now you're looking at Devin Lloyd and perhaps Jermaine Johnson as players who, if they're there, you think they're too good to pass up at 21?
I think Jermaine Johnson's a really interesting one. A lot of people thought Jermaine Johnson was going to be a top 10 pick in the draft, and I never really saw that kind of talent with him. He's a guy that doesn't necessarily bend or run the arc around the corner, around the edge, like a top 10 talent does. He's a little bit more, he's a little stiff. He's not as flexible, right? Turning the corner. And those are the traits that you look at in that.
Titans are planning to trade A.J. Brown to the Eagles.
Like the real A.J. Brown.
The actual A.J. Brown.
Wow.
This is a Schefter, and it's not a fake Schefter. I didn't get fooled here. This is 30 seconds ago. Titans are planning to trade wide receiver A.J. Brown to the Eagles. I don't have details on it. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that was worth interrupting for because it just came out of nowhere.
Holy okay. I mean, we'll see what the return is on this deal. I can already tell you that there's going to be a lot of angry Patriots fans. Why didn't the Patriots make it?
Anytime anybody gets some, but here's the thing. It's not A.J. Brown that the Patriots didn't get. It's that teams at this point are clearly placing massive emphasis on wide receivers. And this is the most frustrating thing about the Patriots roster building over the last several seasons is Bill Belichick has always been so far ahead of the curve in terms of kind of, making sure that he went out there and would really corner the market
18, It's 18 and 101 to the Titans for A.J. Brown. So the Patriots, they could have done like 21 and 85, right? But obviously the Titans are targeting somebody at 18 that they really, really like, and they wanted to be.
How about 21 and Devontae Parker? Because you've already given up a third rounder for him. Would you do that for A.J. Brown?
Yeah, I would have done 21 and 85, but that's not going to happen. I think 18 was the pick that they wanted for some reason, but it's obviously not that big of a difference. So I know I can already hear it that we're going to have people that are going to be, why didn't Bill throw in an extra third rounder, or why didn't Bill throw in 54, right? Why wouldn't he offer 21 and 54? I'm telling you, I think that there's going to be teams Like the Patriots, I think Green Bay could fall into this category with the way the board has gone too. They're going to let everybody else play wide receiver roulette. They're going to let everybody else overpay for the wide receivers and go nuts and do all these things, and they're going to take the value at the other positions. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with it in terms of big picture roster building, but I think that that's exactly what's going on here. And the Patriots are going to sit back and they're going to draft their corner, their guy at corner, or they're going to draft Daxton Hill, or they're going to draft Devin Lloyd or Quay Walker or something like that, and they're going to be organizationally they're going to be ecstatic, right? We might not be ecstatic, but they're going to be ecstatic about it.
Yeah, well, I'm not ecstatic right now, but and again, just to go back and kind of bang that drum again, it's so obvious that everyone's placed a premium on a position, and now the cost has gotten very high.
Yeah.
So that's now it's become a problem. Is all of these years where people were like, oh, this wins football games and tough, hard-nosed, blah, 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 and spending picks on things like linebackers in the first round. Patriots could have been snapping up receivers left and right. And now, again, it's what happened. Guys who people thought would go 17, 18, 13, 14, 25, maybe out of the first round are going in the first 15, 16 picks now. There's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 receiver runs, I think, every draft going forward at this point. So now that opportunity cost has gotten extremely high. That this was a good place to go get receivers, but now you got to spend serious draft capital, which means, for a team like the Patriots, if they're going to remain competitive and be one of these, perennial playoff teams, you're never going to find somebody in the 20s really at this point. You're going to be drafting second and third round talent realistically if you want to get a receiver. So that ship is kind of sailed on them as well, which is really frustrating.
Yeah, see,
so now you got to trade up for your guy, and that's expensive,
Jahan Dotson to me was a value of maybe like an early second round pick. Like that's kind of where I saw him, but I knew that the wide receiver value would knock him up the board into the first round. So I think like looking at the 2019 draft, for example, which is the infamous 2019 N'Keal Harry draft, you had Deebo Samuel, you had AJ Brown, you had DK Metcalf at the end of the second round. Like that's when the wide receivers were going, right? Like the wide receiver run was starting. Hollywood Brown was like somewhere in the 20s, like 25, 26, I want to say. N'Keal was 32, obviously. And then the run started there in the second round at the top. Now that run has started in the middle of the first round. Like Jahan Dotson 3 or 4 years ago is probably like the 34th pick in the draft, right? Like, and now Jahan Dotson's the 16th pick in the draft. And that's just the world that we live in. The one other thing I would say to spin it towards the Patriots some more, if you're the Pats, and I'm not like terrified of Garrett Wilson with the Jets. I'm not. I think he's a good player, but I don't necessarily watch him on tape and say, like, if they had taken Jameson Williams there, I would have been like, oh, shoot, right? Like, now we got Jameson Williams, we got Tyreek Hill, we got Stephon Diggs, we got Jalen Waddle, all in the division. Like, this is speed, like, just game breakers, right? But when I look at the board now, still with Garrett Wilson with the Jets, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle down in Miami, Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis in Buffalo, the Patriots, I think, really have to start thinking about corner here because you're not going to get the wide receiver. Like we just went over that, right? You're not getting the wide receiver. As much as I like Devin Lloyd, I like Quay Walker, I like Jermaine Johnson, but those guys are front seven players unless you're planning on blitzing them on second and third down every single drive and generate pressure and you're going to win up front and that's how you're going to win the game. You got to start getting some guys in the building that can cover these guys because Jalen Mills.
Titans taking Treylon Burks at 18. So again, guys you don't even want at 21, Evan, that you would settle for are gone. Okay.
So Treylon Burks at 18 is interesting because they must see the exact same evaluation.
They must exactly. You're like, is he AJ Brown or is he N'Keal Harry? With someone like Treylon. No, with someone like Treylon Burks, they must think he's AJ Brown.
Right. So what they did is they got out of paying AJ Brown
and reloaded
$30 a year, and they got AJ Brown right in their mind.
Honestly, it's what happened with the Marquise Brown. You get 3 years out of a player, and you say, I'm good. I'm going to reset. You trade him and you reset with someone else. And, and you see that happening as well, which is, I don't want to pay them, and I'm not going into a contract year with them because I'm not going to re-sign them and pay them the $25 million it's going to take to keep them. So off you go. And this is what receivers going to turn into. It's so freaking expensive to sign somebody to a second contract if they're an elite receiver. It's going to become the running back position. You're going to draft them, they're going to play out their rookie deal, and you're going to say bye, or you're going to trade them with a year to go. And teams will be happy to take them because they'll get 2 years of production off of them.
Yeah, so here's the A.J. Brown extension. 4 years, $100 million, $57 million guaranteed. Yep. So, honestly, I kind of like this move by the Titans. Like, I'm not even the biggest Treylon Burks guy, but basically you got the same exact skill set in Treylon Burks for pennies. Of what you had to trade for A.J. Brown, and you restart the clock. Now you have him under team control for 5 years with a fifth-year option included. So do I think that that Treylon Burks can be as good as A.J. Brown? No, but if he's 75% as good, it's a decent deal, right? This is a decent philosophy, and I think smart teams like the Titans, who have been pretty good at this over the last couple of years in terms of team building, smart teams are going to start to think this way, right? Like they're just going to one for one. And I think another team that's sort of thinking like this is Kansas City. They traded Tyreek Hill. It would not surprise me if they draft Christian Watson or Sky Moore or one of these guys that put up a 4.3 40-yard dash at the combine a few months ago, and they say, here's our speed guy, right? And we don't have to pay him $30 million a year. Done. Like, and I think that that's sort of where we're at with these wide receivers. You can either go one of two ways about it. You can either, just neglect it like the Patriots had, or you can turn them out, right? You can just keep spinning the dial. And I don't know. I think that that's like kind of a better way of doing it, honestly, than like what the Dolphins did by giving up 5 picks to Tyreek Hill and $30 million. So,
I don't understand it at all. I don't understand that at all. So I agree with you 100% here. Let's reset where we're at. So the Titans take Burks. We're at pick 19 now, which means 2 more picks until the Patriots go. And again, just kind of reassessing here. Those defensive players that you've kind of had listed on your board are here. So what are you thinking? Again, now just put your, not what they will do. What do you want to see them do here, considering, which player remaining are you hoping to see at 21?
It's tough. At this point, I think that I lean a little bit more towards corner. I just think that you have all these receivers now, and you can hope that you can patch it together in the secondary and pray that the pass rush gets home, right? Like you can go that direction. I think Devin Lloyd and Jermaine Johnson would help you out there. But you look at my corner board, none of these corners have been taken yet, right? Andrew Jr., Trent McDuffie, Elam, Gordon, those 4 guys are the guys in the conversation. Roger McCreary, I don't think is in this conversation because of
how close are these guys for you?
In the same cluster. Like,
so that's the thing is like, could you see a trade back here?
Yeah, I think you could. I think all the top 3 names or top 4 names, including Kyler Gordon, the top 4 names here to me are, they will have a type. Like they'll have a preference based off of their evaluation of the player of who they like. But I don't think any one of those guys is significantly better than the other. I just think that they're going to just have their guy. My guess is if it's the old Patriots, if it's the Patriots that we've known for the last 20 plus years under Bill, it'll be Kaiir Elam, who's the physical outside press man corner. Florida's a program.
The Jawan Williams type.
Better than Jawan Williams. And they've also drafted out of that program a ton, right? Florida is a program they always go to. SEC battle tested, went up against Burks, went up against Jameson Williams and Mechie, all those guys. So I think that that's certainly a pick that they would make here. McDuffie and Gordon are the 2 guys that you pick if you're really worried about guys like with speed. Like somebody like a Tyreek Hill, Trent McDuffie can go and shadow a guy like that. That's I think a nice pick here as well. I am inclined to think that corner is the way I would go. I personally think that the Patriots might gravitate towards more front 7 though, because I think when you talk about the way that they've operated in the past, I think that they feel like when they pick this early, they want to pick somebody close to the football, right? Like a corner, it can be really, really beneficial, but he's only around the football once every 5 or 6 plays at best, right? So I think that they might look at this and try to build in the front seven in draft. They're always a second round corner team, right? They're always second round DB. It's not exactly worked out, but that's where they're at. But it feels like, based off the way the board has gone, that I would be, if they pick at 21, which they might not, but if they do, I would be absolutely blown away if they pick an offensive player here. Because you look at the way the rest of the AFC has built. If you take Trevor Penning here, the tackle from, like, what are you doing? Like, he's not even going to play, right? He's not even going to play this year. And even if he does, it's because Isaiah Wynn or Trent Brown got hurt, right? So he's not a starter on your team on day one. I don't know how you go tackle here based off of what the rest of the AFC East has done all offseason. And I look at Buffalo, too, in a couple picks after the Patriots. They've been linked to a lot of corners as well. But I think that there might be a running back type of team. And then Trevor Penning just went to the Saints. So he's off the board, too. So I don't think the Patriots are going offense with this pick if they make the pick. There's no offensive lineman to take. If they take Bernard Raymond at 21, then – like, we really can just forget it. Like, 25-year-old rookie with 18 career starts, it's just not a fit at 21 in my mind. So I think you got to go defense. And there's some really good defensive players still available here.
It is, but again, it's trying to keep up right here. You're trying to keep up. And of course, you have teams that have explosive again, we just keep saying the same thing, Evan. And I know that's why you want to go corner, is you see the way the league is going. You see what the teams around you are doing. You see what types of players that they're adding. You see where you're weak at receiver and cornerback right now. So you don't have the guys that can put the pressure on the other team on the offensive side of the ball. You don't have the guys who can stop their guys on the defensive side of the ball. That's concerning. And again, there's more to football than just that, but it's hard to not see what's happening around you and think like, okay, time for the Patriots to kind of step up and load up here. I don't know if trading up was a possibility. I don't know if trading for one of these receivers was a possibility given the price tags here. I just don't think that's how Bill views things. I think Bill just sits back and says, what do we got? And that's what he's doing here, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I'm with you on the wide receiver issue. I really am. I just don't know who.
Can't do anything now. You can't. You were in the wrong place. You were in the wrong spot. You didn't have enough draft equity to be able to move around there without really kind of handicapping what you could do at other, later stages in the draft. They obviously have needs, but again, I'll always say this. Give me one player that you think is a 10 out of 10 instead of 4 6s. So I don't know what types of players you're going to get wherever they end up drafting. If you move back here and you're taking a bunch of second and third rounders that are okay but not necessarily impact or needle moving sort of players, I may say roll the dice and move up and see what you can do, and get that splash player, get the one guy you really love, and then let the rest. Do you need 3 Josh Uche? Do you need guys that may or may not hit, may or may not play, haven't been impact? Yeah. You haven't been super successful in the second round. You haven't been super successful drafting defensive players in the second round. I really don't know. So we will see. Again, we are at pick 20. Anybody tip that one yet before the Patriots go on the clock?
I don't think I've seen it yet. Trevor Penning went 19 to the Saints. So at this point, Zion Johnson, Kenyon Green, and Trevor Penning are all off the board. So you can't be thinking offensive line here.
6 receivers taken between 8 and 18, plus Marquise Brown and A.J. Brown traded, okay?
Yeah.
That's sending off alarm bells. This is what's happening, and again, I don't know. I don't know if Bill is sitting there surprised by this, but I don't think he should be.
No. I think, like I said, the one surprise here for me is obviously Dotson at 16, but like you were saying, the run started, right? Like, so if you don't grab Dotson, like I think the Commanders probably could have traded back a little bit and still gotten Dotson, but you have to have suitors, right, in order to do something like that. You can't just do it because you feel like it. You got to have a team that actually wants to trade back with you. So I think that when I look at that, that's maybe the one reach that you're like, okay, that was a little bit of a reach there with Dotson, but the run started. So what are you going to do at that point? Honestly, what it comes down to here for me, and Alex and I have done so many of these mock drafts, and I've written mock drafts and things like that. This is pretty much 9 times out of 10 what has happened in all the mock drafts that I have done when I've done these drills is when you get to 21, there's just okay, okay, could I live with Jermaine Johnson? Yeah. Could I live with Devontae Wyatt? Like, sure. Could I live with Trent McDuffie? Like, absolutely. Like, these guys I think could be good players for the Patriots. But do I think that Trent McDuffie is like worlds better than Kaiir Elam or Daxton Hill or like the next guy in line? No. And the point I'm getting at is this is a trade down spot for the Patriots. It just really is. Like,
it is.
It's a trade down spot. It's a accumulate the pick spot and see if you can get an extra top 100. I think the Patriots are officially on the clock now. I haven't seen who was picked at 20.
Neither have I. Have you?
Kenny Pickett, the quarterback from Pittsburgh, is staying in Pittsburgh and going to the Steelers. So
he is okay. So there's the first quarterback.
So here we go. Here's the Patriots pick. Honestly, I would be really shocked if they don't trade out. Like I now again, Bill Belichick always says this to his guys, to Matt Groh and everything. You got to be prepared to pick, right? Like you can't assume that you can trade out. Like there's not a guarantee that anybody's going to offer you anything to trade out. So you got to be prepared to pick. So they obviously have a guy in mind here that they like. If I had to make a guess based off of my Patriots spidey senses, I would say it's probably Quay Walker. But I truly think that this is a trade down spot. And if it is Quay Walker, then I'm surprised because that leaked. Like that got out earlier today and really yesterday. That Quay Walker was, the Patriots guy, right? So
it feels like 50% of mock drafts had Devin Lloyd going to the Patriots, and he's there. You don't think that that's a possibility?
So I've heard some things about Lloyd that whether they're true or not, I'm not 100% sure. And I hate like speculating this time of year, right? Like I hate like saying, oh, I heard something, right?
Okay.
But
I heard something.
I've heard some things about Lloyd that might, knock him off the board a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
Put it that way. So I don't know. We'll see. Ultimately, I think the Patriots take this down to 10 seconds left on the clock and try to get somebody to bite on a trade, right? Like, I mean, I think that's definitely the feeling. The question that I more have isn't necessarily if they're picking or not here. It's how far back are they willing to move? Like, are they moving all the way out of tonight, right? Like, are we talking about them picking tomorrow? Or are we talking about them moving back to, let's say...
Anybody want a quarterback here who might get a little antsy and want to jump up for Willis? I
would have said Detroit, but Detroit already traded 32.
Right.
So at this point, no, like I don't know. Maybe like if a team wants to come back in from the second round, right? Like maybe if the Giants I did hear some like murmurings that the Texans would be into it on early day 2, right? Like if they could get to the quarterback at that point, then maybe they would be more interested in it. Not obviously with 3 or 13, but at 37, I think is when they pick, then maybe they could be more into it. So maybe that's a possibility. I don't know. The Patriots are taking their sweet time with the pick, which is no surprise. Like I think that they're really trying to work the phone here.
Is this the one you like? You like this guy? All right, we'll take this guy. We get that kind of enthusiasm in the war room this year.
This is the board that we told Patriots fans, and we told everybody that listens to Patriots Beat, me and Alex kept on telling people the board's not going to break for them. Like you're not going to be in love and absolutely thrilled about anybody that's going to be available at 21. Now, I think Devin Lloyd maybe is a little bit more in that category than, I originally thought. Jermaine Johnson, I think, is also a little bit more in that category for people that are really into the draft like me that have actually watched Jermaine Johnson play, right? Like I think maybe you're a little bit more into that, but Jermaine Johnson's a Kyle Van Noy replacement. It's an important role on the defense, no doubt about it. But he's maybe a little bit better, ends up being a little bit better than somebody like Kyle Van Noy. And is that really, are you
You
really?
don't want to just you don't want to upset people, Evan. Don't tell them we're going to draft Kyle Van Noy here.
I think you're getting like what was the big 2019? That was the big season for Van Noy here with the Patriots. He got paid by the Dolphins the next offseason. Like, I think you're kind of thinking of that Kyle Van Noy, right? Like peak Kyle Van Noy, who was a good player for the Patriots, but is he a game changer? I don't necessarily think so. I think he's one of the best run defenders in the draft at that spot. I mean, Thibodeau, those guys can definitely rush the passer much better than he can. But pure run defending, block IDing, seeing the run develop, all that kind of stuff, holding the edge, he's really, really good in that respect. He's a powerful guy in his lower half. He knows how to use his length. All those types of things I think are really nice. The one other player, and this is like, we'll see. Like, this is a total shift in philosophy. Nakobe Dean from Georgia, it could potentially be, in the conversation here. The two things that I've heard about Nakobe Dean that just scream Patriots, along with the fact that he's easily one of the fastest players on tape. So I think the Patriots are taking Trent McDuffie here. So we can officially lock that in.
That happened?
That is happening. It is Trent McDuffie to the Patriots, and this is because Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are in the division, right? Like this player here is a tackling machine in the open field, limits yards after the catch, is terrific in terms of being able to shadow these fast guys. He has this ability to navigate through the trash. Like when they run him on horizontals, like he can just navigate through all these weeds in the middle of the field and somehow come out the other end. Really fast player, but you just consistently see him make tremendous open field tackles. And I think that's really what they're looking for here is, okay, we got to worry. Last year when they put Miles Bryant on Isaiah McKenzie, we saw how that went, right? Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, those types of players. Now you have Trent McDuffie. I think that he's like a little bit more polished on the outside than somebody like Jonathan Jones. I know a lot of people that really, really love Trent McDuffie. Like, he had a lot of fans in the draft community. But like I said, the number one thing that stands out to him more than anything else is his speed and his ability to make tackles in the open field.
Yeah, he's
really
not
in that category.
He is not super long. He's 5'11". He does not have super long arms, so I know that was probably one of the knocks in terms of physical profile on a player like him. But he did run a sub 4.5 40, so he can move. And again, I know you said this is kind of within a range of several types of players that they could get. Was this your favorite corner of the ones remaining?
He was my second favorite. I personally preferred Andrew Booth Jr. from Clemson, but I kind of knew they weren't going to go with Booth. I figured it would be one of the UW kids or Kyer Elam. So this doesn't surprise me that they preferred Trent McDuffie. That's kind of the way this sort of goes. And the one thing I would say about UW too, and that program, they run a bunch of different coverages there. They're very scheme versatile. They're very game plan oriented in a lot of ways. So he's coming in with experience in several different coverages, including a lot of experience in zone. Like, he's played some press man, certainly, but he's also played a lot of zone. So I think you could make the argument that this could be a zone corner more than a man corner.
Wait a second, Evan. We got conflicting reports here. We've got the Patriots trading back.
So maybe they finally got somebody to bite.
They did. They traded back to the Chiefs.
Okay, so Mike Silver was the one that I saw that had McDuffie to the Pats.
Okay, sorry guys, sorry about that. We jumped at some info. Patriots traded back. We don't have the details yet.
Interesting. This is why you can't trust everybody with the blue check on Twitter, right?
We were a little quick on that one. So I was going to give my McDuffie analysis. I'm not going to bother now, but that's good. So now let's see what we've got here. The Chiefs have 2 picks, 29 and 30. So the question is whether the Patriots fall into one of those. They did. 29, 94, 121. What do you think of that in terms of value?
So wait, what is the trade? Sorry.
29, 94, and 121.
Wow, that's a tremendous trade for the
Yeah.
Patriots in terms of value. They got a early fourth rounder out of this too, and that late third rounder, another top 100. They could potentially package now if they wanted to. They could package 127 in the fourth round pick they got from Kansas City to move around again, right?
Yeah.
Maybe move back into the third round or even move up from 54. So that's a tremendous value. I think the Patriots, if you look at the old trade chart there, they're going to come away with
I like this a lot, Evan, and
fantastic trade.
for the reason you said this, for the reason that you just said, you have McDuffie and in a tightly packed group of a series of cornerbacks, and we don't know if any of them will still be there, but generally speaking, it feels like the next 15, 20 players you would have felt roughly the same if the Patriots got. There wasn't that one guy who you're like, okay, they fell. There they are. You got to go get them. So,
Yeah.
as what what you don't love to see is trading all the way back out of the first round, because you do seem to lose a lot of like the remaining. Like as long as we get one of these guys, when you do fall out of there, and then you got to wait around on day two, this does gives you a little flexibility. There's also again the possibility you can trade back again, which they've been known to do, and stockpile even more kind of day two assets. So I'm curious to see what happens here at 29 if they do pick.
So using the trade value chart, this is a slight overpay by Kansas City. The Patriots netted 9 points of pick value here with Kansas City with this trade. So this is a good trade by the Patriots. And I would also say, on top of that, I think they're still easily going to get the player that they wanted, right? Easily get the player that they were going to take at 21, at 29. When I start thinking about the players that they might be targeting at 29, Daxton Hill from Michigan starts to be the name here, right? And maybe also Quay Walker from Georgia could stick around there. But I would say that those two guys really stand out as a back end of the first round type of talent and where they could go with this. So I think that this is a great trade down for the Pats. And there's another, you look at sort of the past, right? And you look at what they've done in the past. They've been able to trade last year. They traded 2 fourth rounders and their original second rounder to move back up for Christian Barmore in the second round. So now they have 121 and 127 and 54. They can essentially make the same exact trade, right? So I think that you also could look at that as a possibility too, where they could now pick at 29 and then potentially pick again in.
Uh-oh. Evan just zonked out, so I'll kind of hold the line here until he jumps back on here. He's logging back on here. But yes, once again, 29 for 21 for 29.94 and 121 with the Chiefs here. Should be a lot of good players still left there. Number 29. Evan, you were mid-sentence when you kind of blinked out here.
Yeah, no, I think that this is a good deal for the Patriots. I know that people want to just want to see them pick, right? I think
McDuffie went to the Chiefs, by the way.
So the Chiefs target. So Mike Silver had the wrong team. He had the right guy going in that draft slot. It was just the wrong team taking him.
We once again apologize, guys, but yes, we did jump the gun at the first notification we saw of that pick. But the Patriots traded back. The Chiefs end up taking McDuffie, who we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Trust that one anymore. Anyways,
yep.
Yeah. Daxton Hill, Quay Walker. I think those are people that maybe could be in play at 29 here for the Patriots. And like I said, I was talking about trade ups from the second round. You can package those 2 fourth round picks that you have at 121 and 127, move back up in the second round. Now you could potentially get 2 top 50 players, right? And that I think Patriots fans should be excited about at this point in the draft. All of the wide receivers are off the board. All of the real impact defensive players were off the board. This is definitely a good trade for the Pats, and I will hang on here to 29, not that far of a jump. But
we're hanging, baby. We're gonna make it all the way here through a pick that we still don't know the Patriots are gonna make. They could trade again, but we'll kind of reset the board here. Anyone else gone since
So the
then.
Packers took Quay Walker. So Quay Walker is now off the board as well. So I think what you're looking at here is honestly Dax Hill from Michigan. I think is somebody that is really standing out to me. And in a lot of ways, I don't really think Trent McDuffie and Dax Hill are all that different. I had McDuffie 9 and Dax Hill 10 on my big board. So we're talking about very comparable players there. I think Kaiir Elam from Florida is another guy that could be there. The Bills are what, 25 or 26? I can't remember off the top of my head. And those guys were thinking corner as well. They run a scheme that really fits Andrew Booth Jr. a lot, though, right? So I think that could be Andrew Booth Jr.'s destination. So maybe Dax Hill, maybe Kaiir Elam. I think those are guys. Kyler Gordon from Washington, I think, is definitely a possibility.
I'll put that back up there. Yep.
Yeah, you still have Bernard Raymond from Central Michigan sitting there at tackle. If they want to go tackle, they traded back. Maybe now you draft a tackle. There's a lot of directions they could still go with this pick. And I think that, look, I think this is the right move. I have mock trade downs all draft season, right? Like this was always going to be the case. There really wasn't going to be anybody left that was going to be an obvious pick there at 21, and they made the trade down. Nobody should be surprised.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. So, are we updating here? We're updating to show the McDuffie. See that little line we just put through him? McDuffie's gone.
So the Bills are now on the clock. So the Bills have traded up a little bit here. I wonder if they're targeting Booth. They might see the corner run here, or Kaiir Elam potentially too. But look, the trades that the Patriots got a lot of picks back on this trade. I think that I can't stress that enough. When we did the mock trades, a lot of the times when we were mocking trades, we thought that the Patriots would be able to get one top 100 pick. The big trade that I was looking at was 2020 when they traded out of the first round for Kyle Duggar, right? They traded 23 for 37 and a third round pick. I think it was like 66 or something like that. So they only got 2 picks out of that. This they got 2 picks in top of their back, kind of netting that first rounder. Like I said, they gained points on the trade chart, and I think they're still going to probably get the player that they wanted. So ultimately, I think this is going to be a move for the Patriots.
Yep. So good stuff there. And again, just to recap how everything went down here. And again, you guys have been watching all along, that the receiver run went fast and furious between 8 and 18. You had a ton of receivers go off the board, starting with the ones you would have expected. Obviously, the big 4 of Drake London, Wilson, and then Olave goes right after Wilson at 11. And then the last one, Jamison Williams, each of those 2 went on trade ups. Then the surprise move at 16, Jahan Dotson goes, and that was somebody who, we were talking about the Patriots settling for potentially at 21. And then at 18, after a blockbuster trade out of nowhere with A.J. Brown going from Tennessee to Philly.
Yeah.
Tennessee
we were all on the Debo scent. It ended up being A.J. Brown. That was the guy that
Tennessee slips into that 18 spot and grabs Treylon Burks. So you have all of these receivers go, and then you have a Marquise Brown trade as well. So again, you have all these receivers go in that window and those 2 big receiver trades. I do wonder, Evan, whether maybe the Patriots this time did have receiver on their radar and all of that stuff happened and they thought, well, we're out of here. Or maybe they just kind of had a feeling the board would fall this way, and it was very likely they were going to trade anyway because they knew the value was there.
So in order to make you happy as well, John, Sky Moore at 29, that feels a lot better in terms of value, right? Yeah. So maybe they could be looking wide receiver still. Like I said, I got that info this morning from a reliable source telling me that they were looking a little bit at wide receiver in the draft. So maybe at 29, they feel more comfortable about a guy like Sky Moore at that point, and they still got the picks back, right? So what I am excited about with this is they're going to pick at 29, I think is the assumption. And then I also think that they might move 54 and do what they did last year with Christian Barmore. right, and move back up in the second round.
Yeah. That's a
So
very
now,
that's a very Pats move. Move back,
yeah,
accumulate picks in the second round, and then be able to really strike when the guy that you were targeting the whole time. And again, this is very possible. A guy like Barmore might have been on the Patriots' radar as early as the first round, but they know I can get him somewhere else. But as soon as you
right.
think you got to move, you move, and that's what they did last year. We've seen them move up in that second round to get that player quite a few times.
So the Bills took Kaiir Elam. So the interesting part about these two trades is the Patriots basically just gifted two of the next best corners kind of on the board here, right? Like, you have a need at corner, and two of the better corners just went in successive picks here.
And again,
And Quay Walker went in between. So three guys that I think a lot
we
of
haven't
people,
crossed them off yet, but yeah, McDuffie and then Elam.
so McDuffie, Elam, and Quay Walker go in the next three picks. Those are guys that definitely a lot of people thought the Patriots would be in on, right? So it is interesting. You mentioned Barmore. What I had heard about Barmore is that the Patriots, if Mac Jones wasn't there at 15, would have taken Barmore.
That's what I mean. Is like
Yeah,
they had
so
him extremely
yeah,
high,
right.
and I mean, extremely high. So that would have been interesting. And
Yeah.
obviously they got him where they got him.
So in my final mock draft, I had Kyler Gordon, as their pick. I think I had them taking him at 32. I think that I had the Lions with the trade down, but Kyler Gordon was the pick there. A little bit longer than Trent McDuffie, got a little bit more size, a little bit more experience playing on the outside. So he's more of a pure outside corner, not necessarily like McDuffie, who I think ideally in the NFL is like a Z slot shadow, like somebody that's going to play mostly inside. So they could be looking at a guy like Kyler Gordon as well. Andrew Booth Jr. is my favorite, but I just don't really think it.
Yeah, but the longer it lingers, the more it might become reality. If it's your favorite guy, that would be a win for you.
Yeah, I just don't feel like he's a Patriot guy. He only played 15 games in college, so they don't usually typically go for guys that don't have a lot of tape, right? And they also don't like Clemson. They've never drafted a player from Clemson, never in 22 years. So that would be bucking a trend for sure. But if you're looking at small school guys, that maybe Sky Moore right there, Western Michigan, like he's the next receiver. And we'll see. I think that's a big possibility. I also would say that I think Dax Hill from Michigan, who once upon a time, every single one of us on the beat has mocked Dax Hill to the Patriots at least once in some mock draft. A very versatile player, can play corner, can play safety, fast, really good open field tackler, bigger than Trent McDuffie. So he's got a little bit more size than Trent McDuffie. I think that there's a lot to like about Dax Hill. The way that I look at Dax Hill is that you kind of play him exactly how you played Devin McCourty, meaning as a rookie, because the Patriots need an outside corner, you play Daxton Hill at outside corner, and he's probably already a starting caliber outside corner for you. But where he's a Pro Bowler is at free safety. So once Devin McCourty retires, you go in your head, you move him to free safety. Like that's sort of the idea there. So I think that would be interesting. I'm surprised that the Bills went with Kaiir Elam. I love Kaiir Elam. I think he's a good player. He's a straight man-to-man corner, and they're pretty much a zone-based scheme. So they obviously like his length and some of his physicality, but I'm surprised that was the pick versus, let's say, like a guy like Booth, who's more of like a pure zone guy.
Yep. So we are now at pick 24. The Patriots will be going at pick 29 after trading back with the Chiefs. Still a lot of viable defensive players on the board here.
Yeah.
And as Evan said, there's a sleeper receiver that one could consider if they wanted to. And again, there's always the trade out of the first round altogether option. And again, 29 is kind of that spot where you wonder if someone tries to trade back in for a quarterback. And so I am curious if that's something that could be considered as well. And again, Patriots would obviously be one to capitalize on something like that.
Yeah, so the Cowboys are on the clock now. Jermaine Johnson from Florida State has fallen like an anchor to the bottom of the ocean here, which is really surprising, I would say. there has to be some.
There's always one, right? And
There has to be
something
some sort of medical red flag. I mentioned the off-field concerns there a little bit with Devin Lloyd. I think is something that maybe is hurting his stock. With Jermaine Johnson, though, I have no clue what's going on with that.
I mean, again,
some sort of medical red flag.
He's not the end all be all, but you haven't seen a mock draft where he wasn't taken at this point in the draft, and you have some as recently. Even I know Mel Kiper's today had him at 7. So whatever red flag has caused him to fall, everybody else knew about it. This is what always kind of cracks me up about the NFL draft process, how certain things like this elude everyone. Because obviously
even the big guys like McShay and Kiper, even those guys don't even know that this is happening.
Obviously, every single Evan. This thing calls you Amit.
Oh no, my name is wrong.
I'm going to change your name.
All right, well, we'll see how this does feel like Jermaine Johnson to the Cowboys would make a lot of sense. Jerry Jones doesn't give a crap about what red flag you have, right?
No, it's actually he like it might be a requisite for the Cowboys.
Yeah, so he loves to take the fallers, like guys that are probably 5 to 10 range talent-wise. Oh, now I get to get him at 24. Like Jerry's doing laps, right? Like he's ecstatic. So I think that's definitely feels common for the Cowboys. The other thing, I mean, he's a center, and I don't necessarily know if the Cowboys need a pure center, but Tyler Linderbaum is one of the best pure players in this draft, just pure talent, but he's a center. So centers don't usually get drafted super high. But just in terms of like,
Alex, the Patriots need one eventually.
Yeah.
So
Alex jokes about Matt Araiza being like the Madden rating, like, top 5 player in the draft. Tyler Linderbaum is also Madden rating top 5 player in the draft, right? So he's somebody that's coming up here shortly, I would assume, is going to go quickly. He's definitely going to go in the first round. I think the Bengals at the 31st pick is his absolute floor in my mind.
Yep. Let's see here. Any picks yet?
No picks. It's been quiet. I think maybe we're getting into trying to force trades, right?
People are getting sleepy. Yeah, I think there are the trades are definitely in play here.
Yeah, who's willing to trade? Because we talked about it. Like, this is a sweet spot of the draft. This is actually right now, I should say, this is the dearth of the draft. Like, this is where it levels out. And now the guy that you're getting at what we're at pick 24 is really not that much better than the guy that you're going to get at pick 50. Like, the drop off really is just not that much. I would say it carries all the way through to the end of day 2. We're talking about guys that are from probably this range to about 75, 85. Like when the Patriots pick again in the 3rd round, it's kind of all the same. Like,
and that's honestly, and that's always that's my philosophy always is, if the stud is there, not only do you take him, you consider trading up for him, and other picks be damned at that point. It doesn't matter. And if not, just keep trading back. There's no reason not to at this point. I know Pats fans hate it, but like a lot of times when they did trade back, you're seeing guys in and around where they're picking these stud receivers that had fallen to 22 and 23. And again, this is a couple of years ago when a receiver could last that long. And the 3rd or 4th receiver on the board is still there. And you're like, oh, take him. And it doesn't happen. And then it gets a little bit frustrating when you see those moves. But right now, as you said, at this point, you're talking about a really tightly packed pool of far from perfect, though decent defensive type players that the Patriots have picked from. And really, there's no offense here. There's no offense to choose from.
So the Cowboys are taking Tyler Smith from Tulsa. So another tackle off the board.
Okay.
I got to admit, I personally didn't see it with Tyler Smith when I watched his tape. Really, really heavy hands, really strong player. He's a people mover, right? But I think he's a guard. And my guess is they think he's a guard too. And that was a big need for them. A lot of people mocked Zion Johnson, Kenyon Green. Like those were the guys that they had Dallas targeting. So they end up getting Tyler Smith. And I think they're probably going to move inside to guard. So this is another lineman off the board. At this point, Bernard Raymond's the lone lineman that really has any chance of going this early. So I don't know. It could be Bernard Raymond. I mean, that could be their guy. But if that's going to be their guy, then they better be trading back up in the second round to get a stud, right, at a different position. So because you're redshirting Bernard Raymond every day of the week. Jermaine Johnson, apparently, I just was texting with somebody about him. The media seemed to overvalue him. From my source, doesn't think that there's really much going on there in terms of red flags. It's more that the media was way higher on him than the league, which also does happen sometimes.
It does happen. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he's somebody that the league always felt like was in this range, and the media was all. And to be honest with you, I had like a mid first, low second round grade on Johnson too. I didn't see it as much as other people did either. I think he's a complete player, but I don't think he's like particularly great at any one thing, which I think in the draft is super important if you're going to go early. Like, Trayvon Walker is an athletic specimen. Kayvon Thibodeau is an elite pass rusher. He doesn't have Jermaine Johnson's ability as a run defender yet, but he's an elite get off the ball and get the quarterback. And that you need to have that signature trait to go super early in the draft. And I'm not sure that a guy like Jermaine Johnson has it. He has it against the run, but this is 2022, right? We're not talking about the run as a priority anymore.
Throwing up some of your linebackers here, Evan, again, I knew since Quay Walker is a guy that a lot of people mentioned. Here, you mentioned Dean as a possibility. You mentioned Lloyd. Is there any other player here that you think could be realistic at 29?
So Nakobe Dean's a really interesting one from Georgia. I think we tried to talk about this earlier, but we got cut off by a trade or something. The two things that I've heard about Nakobe Dean, I wrote about this in my mailbag, that just absolutely scream Patriots. Number one, as a true freshman, he walked on as a true freshman to the Georgia practice field and was already barking out signals and had already mastered Kirby Smart's playbook faster than any defensive player that Kirby Smart has ever coached, according to the guys down there. So he's got it between the ears and then some. Like, he is a field general. The other thing I would say about him is character, leadership, off-field quality is absolutely through the roof. Like, really just a good person, right? And I think that those are two things that the Patriots have always cared about a lot. And when you watch the tape with the football IQ, his eyes are just never wrong. And he plays so fast because of it. He is just a screamer all around the field because he just anticipates and sees things so quickly that he's able to do that. He clearly had the best tape of any Georgia player in the draft. He just doesn't have the ideal measurables. He's like a mid 4.6s guy. He's undersized. He's 230 pounds. So he doesn't fit the typical Patriot mold at linebacker, but from a acumen and just general makeup sense, he's a Patriot through and through. And a lot of people want that new age at linebacker, right? Go smaller, go faster, get better in coverage. Nakobe Dean certainly checks all of those boxes. So that's somebody that I think that they could definitely be thinking about here at 29. He was always going to be late first, early second round pick. And with what's going on with Devin Lloyd, I think you could definitely see Nakobe Dean as being the guy that they go with instead.
And again, Evan, you talked about dipping into that Georgia pool and being a thing that, that they might be interested here. It felt like Quay Walker was someone in the range where the Patriots were picking. And of course he was. He went a couple picks later. Nakobe Dean could be another.
Yeah.
One pick, that's right.
If you're gonna draft Nakobe Dean, though, I will say, and there are some really good day two defensive tackles in this draft. The one thing that Nakobe Dean really benefited from was playing behind Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, Jalen Carter, who's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft next year, Trayvon Walker, who was the number 1 pick this year. Those guys allowed him to be free, right? Those guys allowed him to run and roam and go sideline to sideline. And the fact that he was only 230 pounds didn't matter because he never had to take on guards because the guards were occupied by Jordan Davis all the time. So if the Patriots are going to go Nakobe Dean, then they have to get a true nose. Like they have to get some beef on the defensive line along with Barmore. Maybe a guy like Travis Jones from UConn is somebody they think about moving back up for or something like that. I think that that's certainly in the conversation. But if you're going to go a new age at linebacker, and Nakobe Dean would basically be essentially like having another safety, having another Kyle Duggar. So you're going to put like Nakobe Dean, Kyle Duggar, Adrian Phillips, and Jabril Peppers like on the field. Like those are going to be your linebackers, right? If you're going to go that direction, then you absolutely have to build up the defensive line. There's no way that you can play those guys without a great defensive line. So
yeah, and again, this is the dilemma with the Patriots is, people wanted a splash move, but the reality is the needs are many in terms of the roster right now and
right.
things that they need. You can only address so many through the draft, but you do want to make sure that you are plugging holes and not getting players who are redundancies here or players that you can't utilize properly. So yeah, again, help along the front seven. Obviously they need it. And it's sensible and it makes sense. You need cornerback help somewhere here as well. And I know, it just, this might be one of those drafts where people just, and again, you always have the Mechie, possibility or something like that. But I mean, how late do you think someone like that? I just think we might have to give up on this wide receiver dream for this particular draft and try to stockpile as many. Maybe not entirely, but how a guy like Mechie, who I know just keeps getting lumped with the Patriots, where exactly does he go? Because now we're seeing people.
I think his
ceiling at this point.
His ceiling, I think, is. I think he could go second round. I think he could go like in the 40s somewhere, maybe early 50s. I think 54 for the Patriots is pretty decent value for John Mechie. I think if he's healthy, no ACL injury, he's probably a top 50 pick, right? So Jameson Williams fell to 12 because of the ACL. I would assume that he probably would have been in that 6 to 8, like the Giants at 7 might have taken Jameson Williams if he's fully healthy, right? So you're in that, maybe 10 pick range, right? That maybe you dock it because of the ACL. So when I mocked him to the Patriots in my final mock, I had him as like a very early 3rd round pick. And I think that could be where they're at with John Mechie. That's the thing, is it is a deep wide receiver class on day 2. So I wouldn't necessarily say they're all out on wide receivers. I mean, John Mechie, Khalil Shakur.
No, I just meant in the first round here. Where everyone was hoping one of those situations. But yeah, day 2, there's still possibilities.
Yeah. Day 2 is, I think, the sweet spot for that position. I think that they're going to have some fun on day 2. I honestly do.
Oh, there's your center, Linderbaum.
Linderbaum.
Yep.
Beast.
Went to the Ravens here. So quality player off the board. Someone we weren't really, we didn't really have earmarked for New England. So it's yet another player you can cross off your, I hope they don't draft that guy list. If that's how you feel. If you didn't want interior.
Well, he's a great player, but I mean, David Andrews is not going anywhere anytime soon. So I not a need, right? Not a need. And Linderbaum is a straight center. He's not a guard. He's not going to play guard at the league. He's only like 300 pounds, like 305 or something like that. So he's not built like a guard. He's undersized. So he's a center through and through.
Yep. So that's what you got now. We are now on pick 26. So the Patriots are up shortly with pick 29. And again, with the exception of those couple cornerbacks that went, virtually everybody that you thought might have been a possibility is still out there. If they are going to hold on to this pick right now. And again, if you had to handicap it at this point, are you seeing corner in their future?
I'm seeing Dax Hill from Michigan in their future, who's a DB. He's a corner / safety. He's Devin McCourty, right? He can kind of play both.
So you're sticking there.
I think that was the one that makes the most sense. Like, he just fits the Patriots so well. He fits them like a glove. The Jets traded to 26, so they're back on the clock here. He just fits so perfectly for the positionless idea that they might have going now at the secondary, where they can just revolve the door. Like, guys can just play every single spot. There's so much flexibility back there, and that's what Daxton Hill can do. And I would also say maybe the most important position that kind of never gets talked about in Bill Belichick's defense is free safety. Like, Devin McCourty has a ton of responsibility on his shoulders at all times, right? And they might think that Devin McCourty, give him to Devin for a year or two, let him groom him at free safety. And then when Devin McCourty hangs it up and retires, you have the next guy in Daxton Hill. And that could definitely be what they're sort of thinking here. So
it is super hard to imagine the Patriots without Devin McCourty.
It is. And that's where we're headed, right? I mean, Devin McCourty is literally a year-to-year proposition.
Yeah. And he has been and this is the third straight year he's been that. So you really don't know.
Yeah. I mean, when the season ended, I was texting with a source in Devin McCourty's camp. They didn't even know if he was going to come back this year. Like, no one knew. Like, he still had to make that decision. So retirement is definitely a word that's been spoken in the McCourty household more than once, right? Yep. So I think that's definitely on the horizon, and Daxton Hill can just transition so effortlessly into that role when the time comes. So we've also talked a lot about the last couple months, positionless defense in the secondary, not necessarily having the Stephon Gilmore, the Darrelle Revis, or the Ty Law, but just having 6 guys that can play anywhere. And just being able to rotate them all around and confuse quarterbacks and play more zone and go that direction. Maybe that's where they feel like they need to head as a team.
And I get it, and you mentioned it. So
Jermaine Johnson finally went to the Jets. That's what they traded
to the Jets. Yep. So, So there you have it. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. When we, were mistaken and thought they had drafted, McDuffie there, but just there's just so many frigging receivers you have to account for on the other teams nowadays. Right. This notion of like the one single shutdown does feel a little bit antiquated. You do feel great when you had it, and obviously they had a philosophical shift there during those years when they went from Talib to Revis and then eventually to Gilmore, which is like, I don't want to have to worry about that. I want to be able to do stuff other parts of the field. So I want the one guy to take things away. I just don't think you can. I mean, there's so many guys to take away now, and it really takes a village in order to stop some of these offenses. So philosophically, I understand what they're trying to do here, going a little bit more positionless and having a ton of guys who can play all over the field and do a lot of different things there. It makes sense. Also, again, sometimes when you have that shutdown corner, teams can scheme away from them and they can do other things. So, you
look at the teams in the division, okay, it's great that you have the shutdown.
I can get a little bit why not giving the top dollar, to JC, for example. I understand the philosophy behind what they're trying to do, but you need the bodies. You need guys who can run. You need more bodies. They just didn't have. I know they have the safeties, but you just need more guys out there than what they had last year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, and you look at a team like Buffalo or a team like Miami. They have 2 receivers, right? They have 2 top guys that are tough to cover. Gabriel Davis and Diggs. Hill and Waddle. Now in Jets land, you got Wilson
and Wilson, right?
And Corey Davis. So yeah, it's great to have the one guy, like you said, but zone positionless defense, I mean, that could be a direction that they're really considering. And I was talking about the Georgia defense earlier and how they pieced that whole thing together and how it's such a great team defense last year. A lot of what these college teams are doing, I mean, college teams don't play man. Like, what's man coverage in college, right? Like, that's not a thing. So college teams play a lot of zone. They play a lot of zone match coverages. They play a lot of 2 high safety shells, right? Where they have 2 split safeties, splitting halves in the middle of the field. So they play a lot of these types of lighter boxes, and they play a lot more speed in the secondary, and they play more zone. And the reason why they do it is because these teams are spreading you out.
Right.
They're running RPOs. They're running vertical concepts in the air raid schemes. And it's just too hard. It's too hard to have 5 guys that can run with everybody with all this space and all this scheme to create space. It's just really hard to have 5 guys that can run with everybody. And as it continues to trickle up from the college ranks, I think the Patriots, ideally, I would say the Patriots are looking at Alabama, they're looking at Georgia, and they're looking how the top defense in college football do it. Even Cincinnati, for example, they have a great defense too, and a great Luke Fickell's amazing coach on defense. The way those teams all do it, that's the way that the NFL will soon do it too. Like
Right.
you're just not going to play cover one man against a team like Miami all the time. Like you just don't. You're not going to have the cover guys to do it.
Yeah. The Jets, by the way, have had a really outstanding day one.
Yeah, they have. I'm not the biggest fan of Garrett Wilson. Like I think he's a solid player, but I mean, if they had taken Jameson Williams there, I would have been a lot more worried about the Jets. Sauce is a great pick. I mentioned the scheme fit when we were on air when they made that pick. Really easy transition money pick. Richard Sherman's already tweeted about it. Like, you just got mini me, right? So that's a really good pick. Garrett Wilson and Jermaine Johnson, like I said, really solid players that I think that a lot of people probably heard their names in this pre-draft process, names but I'm not like, oh no, that they took these guys, right? I don't really feel that way.
Any edge guys you still like here?
The one edge guy that
how about my Greek guy over in Iowa?
So Purdue, George Karlaftis.
Purdue, Karlaftis, yeah. Purdue.
Well, I didn't really see Karlaftis as much of a Patriot fit. He's not on my big board. To me, he's a 4-3 end. Maybe they're going to play some more 4-3. I don't think he's an outside linebacker. I don't think you want him to play on his feet. I don't necessarily see it that way with him. So if they're going to play 4 down guys, even fronts, 4 guys with their hands in the dirt, Karlaftis plays football like he's the Hulk. Like he's literally Hulk smashing people. Like that's what he does. He's speed to power. He's bull rush. He's all strength. Like it's all gas, no brakes, and there's no finesse to his game. He's rigid. There's no inside counters. There's no spin moves. There's no inside out crossovers. He's not going to, like Allen Iverson you anytime soon. He's going to go right through you. Like that's his game. And that pocket condensing and the pushing of the pocket, like the Patriots like that sometimes. But I think the concern that I have with it for the Pats and the fit is when you can only speed to power, your get off in your initial couple steps are so important. And in their scheme, I worry about him blowing the edge, right? Because if you need to convert speed to power, and that's the only way you're going to get the pressure on quarterbacks, you're going to end up behind the quarterback a whole lot. Like that's, Judon's a great example of it towards the end of last year. He was just trying to scream off the line, right? He was trying to go for sacks. And how many times did he get behind Josh Allen and Josh Allen ran around him and made a throw, right? And I kind of worry about the same thing with George Karlaftis. I'm just not 100% sold on the fit there, but as he falls down the board, I mean, look, this is the kind of guy we're talking about. Like, ideally, he's probably like a top 20 pick, but obviously there's a reason why he fell or just kind of slipped through the cracks here. Maybe at 29, they like the value, but I don't necessarily love the fit there. And I didn't have him on my board for that reason.
Gotcha. Pick is in on the Jaguars, who I think they moved up here into 7.
Yes, they did. Yeah, they moved up. Who was it that traded back? Now we're getting late in the night here.
We are getting late.
The Jaguars did Tampa. The Buccaneers traded back.
That's right.
So the Jags took Devin Lloyd. So Devin Lloyd is now
there. There it is. Devin Lloyd. So that's one. Again, you saw his name pop up a ton.
He was my top player on my big board that was still on the actual board. Yeah. He was if we reset the big board, he was my number 1 guy. So there goes that. Devin Lloyd and Daxon Hill Nakobe Dean and Daxon Hill are the ones that are staring at me right now. I really feel like Daxon Hill, when we started talking about Daxon Hill to the Patriots and we started mocking Daxon Hill to the Patriots, it sounded so cliche that it almost sounded like it wouldn't happen. Like it was like when we started talking about Mac Jones last year. It's like, oh, of course they're gonna take like the smart, like processor accurate pocket quarterback. They're not gonna take Justin Fields, right? Like they're gonna take Mac Jones. Dax Hill is such a Patriot. It's not even funny, and it like feels like it's just such a home run pick for them that it almost feels too good to like they wouldn't do it, right? You know, so we'll see, but I don't know that one.
Is there any player left? And again, I know we just said with Johnson here with the Jets, and then Devin Lloyd being a player that seemed to be kind of coveted and slid a little bit, to this point in the draft. Is there another player out there right now, still dangling, still hanging out there, that you think would get a team to want to trade up? And again, I know the quarterback would be potentially one for any team that thinks I don't want to wait till day 2 to see if I get him. Is there anyone else?
I don't necessarily think so at this point.
Because you're looking at what's being given up here. I know the Patriots made a good move there, but I mean the Bucks Jaguars trade 27 for 33, 106 and 180. That's a great deal for the for the Bucks. Moving back only 6 slots there and getting 2 other picks where they got them, 106, obviously 180, a deep pick. So again, if people are ready to throw around more draft equity at the Patriots at 29, I wouldn't be surprised here again if there's a potential trade down.
No, I mean, just looking at the best available, like at this point, I think Nakobe Dean and Daxon Hill are pretty close to the best available players on anybody's board, right? So Devontae Wyatt, I had kind of heard similar things about Devontae Wyatt as we heard about Christian Barmore last year, which is first round talent that's probably going to go early second
Lloyd
round.
just went, Johnson just went. So your top 5 at 21 are gone.
Yeah, so all those guys are gone. Andrew Booth Jr. is still there. Daxon Hill is still there. Nakobe Dean is still there. These were all players that I had in the 6 to 10 range on my big board, right? Not 1 through 5, but 6 through 10. There is a lot of love for Arnold Abikite, I think is how you say it, from Penn State, edge rusher, kind of a late first round pick buzz about him recently. Maybe he's somebody that they could get in on. They're not really a Penn State school. We kind of talked about that with Jahan Dotson, but our Penn State team. I don't know. Dax Hill just feels like the pick. It could be Nakobe Dean. I think that those are the 2 guys that I would kind of lean towards at this point. But I don't know. I'm not necessarily losing sleep over some of the guys that they've lost, to be honest with you. Devin Lloyd, I didn't really see like a major difference between somebody like Devin Lloyd and somebody like Dean, or even like if we go a little bit later on day 2, like Mama or Anderson. Or
that's what I was wondering. You kept seeing him popping up, and you saw a lot of people really excited about the possibilities here. But was there that much separation?
Not a ton in my mind. I think that Lloyd and Dean I kind of had in that first tier together, and then I had the rest of those kind of day 2 guys right in a cluster together. So maybe a little bit. The Patriots are back on the clock. Are they actually going to make a pick, or are we going to trade out of this one too? We'll see.
I always opt for trade out.
I'm gonna make sure 100% that this is that we're not messing up with this one. So Devontae Wyatt went to the Packers at 28. So he's now off the board. So unless they like Andrew Booth, which they might, I mean, he's a great corner, great tape, limited tape, but great tape when he was out there.
Go with Booth. That's what I want, Evan.
Booth could be the guy here. Dean, Daxon Hill. I cringe to say it, but Bernard Raymond could be the guy here too.
Positionally speaking, again, I'm on the wide receiver train, blah, 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 blah. It wasn't going to happen where they were picking unless they moved up. You got to live with that, and so be it. Just generally speaking, the position that would enrage me the least, beyond with it not being receiver, is corner, because I think you desperately need them. You need these guys out here. And if we got the top one on. Should we call and tell them that Lazar's top corner is available? Because I mean,
well, he's not my top corner in the entire draft. He was just my top corner to the
top
Patriots.
corner that they could possibly get where they got.
Right.
Somebody's got to tell them, right? Guys, Evan's guy is there.
My goodness. I like Daxton Hill a lot too. I think
Get
that would
Booth
be a really good
now. Booth or trade out. That's what
it wouldn't surprise me if the Patriots decided to trade out again, right? Like, would it really surprise anybody?
Oh, sorry, I think people like all three of the guys you're mentioning in the chat here: Booth, Dean, or Hill.
Yeah, I think if you come away with any of those guys, it's a home run. I think the one guy that I personally would kind of hear is Bernard Raymond from Central Michigan, left tackle. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. He's going to be a 25-year-old rookie, which he spent 6 years in college. So he's going to be a 25-year-old rookie. And I say that not, Sebastian Vollmer was also a 25-year-old rookie. So that's kind of the comparison there. The biggest reason that I don't like it is because he's probably not going to play as a rookie, right? Because you have Isaiah Wynn and you have Trent Brown. So his first full year as a starter, he's going to already be 26 years old. Yeah. So I just don't love the optics of that. I just think that you're really limited. Like, you're really only getting the rookie contract out of that player. Like, that's it. He's going to be on the team for 4 or 5 years, and that's it. I don't know if I love that. So
no, don't do that. Don't do that.
No, you want to get a guy ideally that can be here for a decade, right? Like, that's what we're talking about here. So we'll see, but this is lingering a little bit again too. So they could be trying to make another trade here.
Never know.
My gut tells me Daxton Hill. That's what I'll say.
All right. I like it.
Yeah. I'm not going to try Mike Silver this time around. He got the boot.
He smoked us.
Yeah.
Smoked us. It happens. At least we didn't fall for something crazy like a fake Schefter with like a block. The Patriots just got AJ Brown, so that would have been bad.
No, he had the right player. He just had the original team picking him, not the team that traded into the pick.
That is true. So here we are. We kind of made it. We jumped on at 15 and counted down to 21 where the Patriots were supposed to pick. They traded out into the 29th pick, and they're currently on the clock here. We will see as it stands right now. They have 1 pick in the second round and 2 third-round picks as far as day 2 picks go tomorrow. There is obviously the possibility here that they could trade back once again, accumulating even more day 2 picks, which again, what that does gives them a ton of flexibility to be able to move around the board and get the exact players that they want on day 2. And that is something we've seen them do in the past. So
tomorrow night's going to be fun. I know it drives Patriots fans nuts that they traded back and all this kind of stuff, but they have so much ammo now, and they're going to come away with at least 2, if not 3 really good players tomorrow night. And that's great. And maybe even 4 if they ended up trading, because they, a couple years ago is not the best comparison, but Dalton Keene, they traded 2 4th rounders to come back up into the end of the 3rd round to draft Dalton Keene in 2020. Yeah, maybe different, same draft slot that we're going for, right?
Don't mention that.
We could have, there could be, my point is that they could make.
No, I know.
Right?
Yeah.
They could make 4 picks tomorrow, and they added the extra 6th rounder and 7th rounder. So it wouldn't surprise me if they come away with 5 guys over the first 2 days. If they just say, "Okay, we'll see you in the 5th round."
Who did the Chiefs draft when they drafted a corner?
Oh boy! Oh boy!
Don't do it to me.
I don't know what to say. The Patriots have drafted offensive lineman Cole Strange from Chattanooga with the 29th pick in the draft.
They did it to us, Evan.
In my mind, is a 4th round pick that the Patriots are taking here with the 29th pick. I am trying to be as professional as I possibly can with this analysis and not lose my head. He is very experienced. Yeah, I can read my notes on him. I had him as my 8th rated interior offensive lineman in the draft 44 career starts, hyper aware and pass protection, good feel for the position, hand strength, outside hand strikes, makes it difficult to dent the corner on him, has play speed to work laterally and up to the second level, feet sustain and run through the blocks, good double team technique, polished all around, loves looking for work. They drafted a starting guard in the first round that, in my mind, is a third or a fourth round guy. And this is a definition, in my opinion, of getting too cute with it. Like, there's just no other way to put it. This Bill Belichick, for all the smoke that he blows up our you-know-whats about how need doesn't matter and you don't draft based off of need, you draft based off of talent and you draft based off of best player available. I don't ever want to hear Bill Belichick say that to us ever again, because it's a load of crap. It's an absolute load of crap. They took Cole Strange because they needed a guard. He had 41 starts at left guard last year. They're going to play Michael Onwenu at right guard. They're going to play Cole Strange at left guard. But I never, ever, ever want to hear anybody out of One Patriot Place tell us again that need is not a priority on their draft board, because they just did. This isn't even Zion Johnson. And this is the biggest reach that they have made in the draft since we've been covering the draft at CLNS. The biggest reach that they've made. Bigger than Kyle Duggar, way bigger than N'Keal Harry. Like, not even close, right? Not even remotely close.
I know people will say shades of Logan Mankins here when they drafted him late in the first round. Kind of an unknown commodity.
Yeah, that will be the positive spin on it. And look, like I said, 44 career starts. The guy is ready to go.
In 6 years.
He's a 24-year-old.
He'll also be 24 when the season begins.
Yeah. He's ready to go, right? He'll start at guard for them probably day one. I don't know how to positively spin this, and I'm not going to. Like, I don't think it's fair to the people watching and stuff to positively spin this move. This is with Daxton Hill, Nakobe Dean, Tyler Gordon, Andrew Booth Jr., some of the wide receiver talent that's still on the board. This is a massive, massive, massive reach. I mean, we're talking about a reach of epic proportion here. This is like Jordan Richards level. I can't even really think of a comparison with them in the first round. Logan Mankins was considered a high draft pick. Like, Logan Mankins was a smaller school guy out of Fresno, but most people had him as like a top 50 player in the draft, right? I mean,
this was a, by some boards, and again, I understand media and NFL teams have different evaluations. I saw a board recently that had him as the 50th best player remaining.
Yeah. So if you don't want to trust me, there's nobody I trust more when it comes to offensive line than Brandon Thorne. We had him on the podcast a few weeks ago to talk about offensive line. The guy knows offensive line inside and out. He works with NFL teams. He had Cole Strange as a third-round pick value. He had him as a third-round pick value. He had him as interior offensive lineman 12. He was the 12th rated interior offensive lineman on Brandon's board. And the Patriots took Strange in the first round. What do you say about it, John?
I mean, you stupidly, Evan, I said they dodged that interior lineman bullet when those other guys went off the board, and I'm paying for that right now. Look, I'm not going to pretend I'm Evan Lazar level draft guru here. I will say that just from a positional standpoint, this is my least favorite thing that they do by frigging far. And I understand it. And I understand you're always going to say things like, well, look at the track record. And it's hard to argue with the track record. Right. This is just bad business to me. I don't understand that's the guy I liked. That's the guy I took. Okay. If you're going to trade back for value, that means you can keep trading back for value, okay?
Yeah.
That means the player 21 you were going to take, you thought you can get a 29, and you could be wrong, which means, so you have to calculate that the guy I like here, I think I can get him later. And that's fine. You have to do that. But just the value of this, whether or not he was a highly rated guard, this is the last direction we wanted to see them go with one of their early picks here. Because what do they need? They need freaking playmakers. They have to be able to match up with guys who can make plays. And offensive line is important. Great. But we've seen this. They can do this. They can draft these guys later. They've done it a million times before. So I would have been annoyed if they drafted a guard with a first round grade in the first round. But to draft a guard with a third or fourth round grade at the end of the first round here, I don't get it. And I'm going to go back to the Robert Kraft comments in the offseason, Evan, about kind of, little shot across the bow about, hey, draft was good last year, but we got to repeat it. It's not like Robert Kraft is in there with his own big board wondering, I would have taken this guy, but he's got to understand what happened here. And
No.
I just don't get this. Like, the heat is on, man. Like, you got to step up. I don't know how you think that you do that with this pick. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever going to be able to understand this one. Even if he turns into a even if he turns into a good NFL player, that's fine. Draft him in the third round.
Right.
That's fine. Just draft him there.
I mean, look, there's got to be a mock draft out there. Alex and I did 100 of them, right? There's got to be a mock draft out there where we took Cole Strange in like the third or the fourth round for the Patriots to play guard. He's a fit for the team. There's no doubt about that. The issue that I continuously have with this, first of all, like I said when we first announced the pick, first of all, if they come out ever again and tell me that need doesn't matter to them in the draft, like I'm just going to shut off the Zoom call. Like I'm just going to walk out because that's just such BS. Like just don't feed us BS, right? Like I just don't feed us the freaking line. He's talked to Scott Zolak the other day. Right? It's on Patriots.com where he gives the speech again. Well, you don't really draft based off of need because if the player doesn't work out, then you still have a need and like you just take the best player. Cole Strange here at 29. Nobody was taking Cole Strange tonight. Nobody else. Nobody else was taking Cole Strange if they traded back into the 30s and drafted him there. Nobody was taking Cole Strange until midway through tomorrow night. Point blank. And they took him here at 29 because they needed a guard. They looked at their depth chart. They said, we have Onwenu, but we need a guard. So we're going to we're going to take a guard and there we go. Need filled. How the heck does this make you compete with Buffalo? How does this get you any closer? The team that I traveled to Buffalo and watched them got absolutely run off the field by the Bills in a non-competitive playoff game. Non-competitive from the opening drive on. And you're telling me that now you're better off against Buffalo because you have a guy, Cole freaking Strange from Chattanooga at guard? Oh, get out of here with it. Honestly, they do this all the time with the draft. They overthink it. They try to be the smartest team in the room. They had a Patriot player in the secondary in Daxton Hill staring them in the eyes, like literally saying, here I am, Bill. You made your trade down. You set it up perfectly. I'm available. I'm on the board. And that I could say, okay, well, now they have Daxton Hill. So next time when they go up against Buffalo and they put Isaiah McKenzie on the field and they start running him on 17 crossing routes over the middle, you have a guy that ran a 4.3 that can run with him. Good. We made some progress. Cole Strange does not move the needle one iota for this team. And quite frankly, none of the offseason moves that they have made so far have. So I just don't know where this leaves us. If I'm Mac Jones, and look, it's Mac's second year. He knows better. But if I'm Mac Jones, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, Zach Wilson got Garrett Wilson, right? Like, they just got Garrett Wilson. Jacksonville is making moves to get players. All these teams are trading up. Detroit, they just got Jared Goff, Jamison Williams. Atlanta doesn't even have a quarterback, but they still drafted Drake London, and you gave me a guard. Like, what can I do with that? Because guess what? The only guy that actually showed up in that game in Buffalo in the playoffs was Mac. So I just that to me is just absolutely. This is one of the worst picks I've seen Bill make. And Cole Strange might actually end up being unreal.
Just take him later.
Right.
Just take him later. You got to read the board. It's part of the job. Like, it's part of the job. That's the point. That's why they have rounds. You don't just pick players randomly. It's why there's rounds. There's later rounds to take these guys. And again, the Jordan Richards was the same one. It's like they took him in the second. He was rated a 6th. Great. You love the player. Reach for him in the 4th then.
Right. Take him tomorrow night. Take him in the second round.
Your guy Hill went 31.
Whatever. Like, honestly, like when I joked around about not wanting Zion Johnson, I was joking, right? Like I was being serious, but like at least with Zion Johnson, I can look at it and say, oh, okay, Zion Johnson's probably going to be a Pro Bowl guard. I don't even think Cole Strange is going to be a Pro Bowl guard. I think Cole Strange is going to be a starter in the league.
You know what he projects as? Eventual starter in most scouting reports.
Right.
He's not even a plug and play. It's not even I needed a guard and I got a guard. And he might.
This to me too, in so many ways, and when we
the Chiefs took my guy.
Who did the Chiefs take?
Yep.
Karlaftis. When I don't know, I just when I look at Cole Strange, like the boxes, culture fit, like he's got it all figured out. He's got experience. Like he's that kind of guy, right? Like he's just he checks their boxes in all that kind of way, but just draft him when he's supposed to be drafted. Just draft, like, even if you want to reach on him around, like some guys, people had him in the 2nd or the 3rd round. Take him tomorrow night. Take him with your first pick in the 2nd round.
Honestly, it's reckless, Evan. It's sabotage at this point. It's just vandalizing the draft. You just gotta be able to manage the board better. You just have to manage the board. You can't just say, I like the guy, I'm taking the guy. You have to move. You got to trade. You got to take that player later. You just can't do it. It doesn't matter if you like the player. You have to do your work. They're not going to be taken before your next pick. Take them then. Even at 54, you'd be like, wow, that was a reach.
Right.
But come on, are you telling me this was this much better than the next guard you're going to get? Oh my goodness gracious. And we've seen it. Anyway.
Now here comes like the spin, right? Now I'm getting text messages. Strange was going to be an early 2nd round pick. He's going somewhere in the 30s. It's not that much of a reach, and the media was higher on him and all this kind of, lower on him than the teams were. And it's not even the point. Like it's not the point. Whether he's the 80th best player in the draft, like some media had him, or he's, the 40th best player in the draft. You reached on a non-luxury position.
Yeah.
That's the point. You reached by a half a round. I'll give it to you. I'll give you it. I'll give you the half a round. You reached on a half a round at a non-premium position, and it's not going to make you any better against any of the teams in your division.
Versus what you could have done to fill this positional need in other ways,
Right.
In other ways, when other people draft, they need to clear space. They need money to pay their draft picks. Other guards come free. You trade a late round draft pick for somebody to plug and play if you need to do that. You draft in the 3rd or 4th round with one of your many picks. You've been very successful there. There's good value to be had at that point in the draft on those positions. That's where you go get a guy like this, a little ham and egger, plug and play sort of guard. That might compete for a starting job. That's where you go get him. You don't waste a 1st round pick on it. So
and the worst part about it is that you traded Shaq Mason for a 5th round pick just to draft Cole Strange in the 1st round. So you created the need, right? Like you created the hole, and now you're getting you're getting it this way, right? Like so you had to take the guard in the first round because you created the hole. And I don't know. It just ultimately what it comes down to is one, and maybe ultimately, like maybe the Patriots will end up being right, and we'll all end up looking like idiots. But
As
the
we have
rest of
many times before,
the rest of the league is telling you that these other positions are more important than the positions that you're prioritizing, right? Wide receiver, corner, pass rusher. These are the positions that other teams are going after. And the Patriots are insistent that interior offensive line play is worth the first round pick. Maybe they'll end up being right, but it's archaic. It's not how the rest of the league is looking. It's not how the rest of the league is making decisions. It's not how the rest of the league is moving. And ultimately, I at some point you have to really just wonder. And I look at it too, and I say this was the concern. This is the concern that I had with Matt Groh being named the Patriots director of player personnel. My concern was that Bill was going to be surrounded by a bunch of yes men, and Matt Groh was not going to have the balls to say to him, Bill, like, we're not going to actually take Cole Strange in the first round, right? And everybody all in Groh, Alex was all in Groh, we trust. This is Bill. It's Bill's board. Bill's making the picks. Bill's doing the scouting. This is Bill's guy. So, there's Matt Groh, if he had a bigger say in this, then I can't imagine that they're taking Cole Strange here. I just can't. I don't know. It just, at some point we gotta this is, at some point we can't just keep doing this. Like, these other teams are their talent on their roster is just so much better. And the Patriots are out here drafting guards that are second and third round picks on day one. Yeah. I mean, thank God they didn't take the guy at 21, right? I mean, thank
God. I don't know what else we have to say. They're going to talk to us a little bit
about it real quickly,
because they're about to talk to us, so we got to jump off.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say really quickly before we got to go. I understand football is king. I understand that people will always follow the Patriots and always root for the Patriots, and they'll have their fan base and stuff like that. They keep making moves like this, then I don't know how much more, some fans are actually going to take of it. I don't know. I mean, they lost a lot. They kind of, their trust was wavered there with letting Tom Brady go. Now you're taking guards from Chattanooga in the first round. Like, I just don't know. At some point in time, I can't blame the fan base for just being like, does he, what are we doing here?
It's a look, again, we've been proven. I'm not playing devil's advocate because I want to. I'm frustrated. I think most of the viewers here are as well. But again, they've done this and been proven right in the past. So all you can do is hope that this player
even if he turns into Logan Mankins,
but
though, John,
I don't care. I said the same thing.
Right.
I don't care. That's not what you wanted to do at this slot in the draft, given your team needs. So
right.
It wasn't guard. And I don't care. I don't care who you got. So that's where we're at here. We are going to wrap it up. We're going to hear, is it Groh or Bill talking after round one?
It's Groh. He'll tell you all about how great of a guy Cole Strange is.
We felt he was a good player.
Right.
We talked to him. He's really good. He does a lot of good things.
Yeah.
Why didn't you trade back? Well, we felt this was a good decision at the time, given what we had. So anyway, have fun with that, Evan. I'm going to skip it.
I'll try.
Yeah. All right. Hey, thanks to the fans here.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry it wasn't a more exciting pick for us to break down.
Yo, it got exciting late there.
I really thought for a second it was Trent McDuffie. I was like, okay, this I can sink my teeth into.
So anyway, you went from Shaq Mason and a fifth for Shaq Mason for. I just can't even talk about it anymore.
Yeah,
I just can't do it. Anyway, like I said, we hopped on here. we thought they were going to pick at 21. They didn't. They traded back. We've been on here for an hour and a half here. So thank you guys for hanging with us. Obviously, everyone who watched the pre-draft show with Alex as well. We'll be back tomorrow. Oh, can you hear me, Evan?
Yes.
Sorry. We'll be back tomorrow again. Are you guys doing Patriots beat wrap up tomorrow?
We'll do it sometime tomorrow afternoon. Yeah.
Okay. Evan and I will do the same thing tomorrow. We'll jump in and we'll talk when the Patriots are going to make their picks and do all of that jazz. Maybe we'll do a little pre-draft show too if we're getting any buzz. But that's kind of where we're at with it. Evan, any final thoughts?
Nope. That's it. Strange.
People are strange. People are strange.
Yeah.
Good night, all. Thanks again for watching. Hang in there, everybody. Hang in there.